Lydia Sleppy, amidst her administrative duties at the KOAT office in Albuquerque, found herself in front of the telex machine around 4 p.m. on July 7, 1947. Little did she know that this day would mark a turning point in history. The phone rang abruptly, and the message that followed would have a decisive impact on news coverage worldwide. Its true significance may never have been fully recognized. The call came from John McBoyle, a reporter and co-owner of KSWS radio station in Roswell, New Mexico. KSWS, a small broadcasting station, lacked its own telex connection and often relied on KOAT for important transmissions. McBoyle's voice crackled with agitation as he relayed urgent news to Lydia. "Lydia, brace yourself for a bombshell. This needs to go out on the ABC wire immediately. Listen to this. A flying saucer has crashed. No, I'm not joking. It crashed near Roswell. I've seen it with my own eyes. It looks like a crumpled dishpan. A local farmer dragged it to his barn with his tractor. The military has arrived and wants to remove it. The entire area is now sealed off tightly. And now listen about the little man on board. Start transmitting this via telex while I wait on the line." Somewhat bewildered, Lydia hastily typed McBoyle's astounding statements into the telex machine. However, the transmission abruptly ceased after a few sentences. Unfazed by the malfunction, Lydia informed McBoyle of the telex shutdown. At the other end of the line, McBoyle sounded even more agitated, seemingly under pressure and conversing with a third party simultaneously. His voice took on an unnatural tone as he instructed Lydia to wait while he resolved the issue. The telex machine sprang back to life, delivering a message directly to Albuquerque, marked by its formal and stern tone: "This is the FBI. You will immediately cease all communication." Upon receiving the conflicting orders, Lydia confided in McBoyle about the telex instructions. His response was unexpected: "Forget it. You never heard any of this. Be careful, you're not allowed to know anything about it. Don't speak to anyone about this." In the aftermath of the incident, Lydia couldn't shake off the memory. She learned later from McBoyle that he had witnessed an airplane departing for Wright Field, presumably carrying the object or parts of it. Despite the strict isolation measures enforced by heavily armed soldiers, McBoyle couldn't get closer to the scene. The incident faded from Lydia's direct involvement, but it lingered in her thoughts. The events of that day became the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. After her boss, Merle Tucker, returned from a business trip, the incident became the subject of intense discussions. Tucker, concerned that his recent application for a broadcasting license to establish a new radio station linked to his Rio Grande network might be compromised due to his company's involvement in a UFO matter, couldn't shake off his worries. Despite his efforts, he couldn't ascertain whether the incident had truly occurred. Interestingly, many individuals Tucker attempted to question firmly claimed that the object had landed west of Socorro, New Mexico, rather than near Roswell. Additionally, a sheriff's representative at the purported crash site reported seeing the wreckage of a saucer-shaped object and a small patch of scorched earth. However, after the initial sighting, everything seemed to vanish, and no one was willing to discuss it further. Tucker, still haunted by the memories of these events, adamantly refused to be interviewed on the matter and categorically declined to have the conversation recorded. Stanton Friedman, a nuclear physicist and researcher, faced a wall of silence when attempting to interrogate McBoyle. McBoyle bluntly stated, "Forget the whole incident. It never happened." Like many other residents of the area and experts familiar with the research, Lydia likely considered it highly plausible that the incident was related to the widely discussed presence of flying saucers. In 1993 she gave signed affidavit of her account. Below is Sleppy's affidavit, taken in 1993.
My name is Lydia A. Sleppy. In 1947, I worked at KOAT Radio in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My duties included operating the station's teletype machine, which received news and allowed us to send stories to the ABC and Mutual networks with which KOAT was affiliated. In early July 1947, I received a call from John McBoyle, general manager and part owner of KSWS Radio in Roswell, New Mexico, which was associated with KOAT. I do not remember the exact date, but it definitely was a weekday. I never worked weekends, and almost certainly after the 4th of July. The call came in before noon. McBoyle said he had something hot for the network. I asked Carl Lamberts, our program director and acting manager as KOAT owner, and manager Merle Tucker was out of town, to be present in my office while I took the story from McBoyle and put it on the teletype. Using the teletype, I alerted ABC News headquarters in Hollywood to expect an important story, and Mr. Lamberts stood behind me while I typed. To the best of my recollection, McBoyle said that there's been one of those flying saucer things crash down here north of Roswell. He said he had been in a coffee shop on his morning break when a local rancher, Mac Brazel, came in and said he had discovered the object some time ago while he was out riding on the ranch, and that he had towed it in and stored it underneath a shelter on his property. Brazel offered to take McBoyle to the ranch to see the object. McBoyle described it as a big crumpled dishpan. As I typed McBoyle's story, a bell rang on the teletype indicating an interruption. The machine then printed a message something to this effect: "This is the FBI. You will immediately cease all communication." Whatever the precise words were, I definitely remember the message was from the FBI and that it directed me to stop transmitting. I told McBoyle the teletype had been cut off and took the rest of his story in shorthand. But we never put it on the wire because we had been scooped by the papers. I never again discussed the matter with McBoyle, but the next day, he told Mr. Lamberts the military had isolated the area where the saucer was found and was keeping the press out. He told Lamberts he saw planes come in from Wright Field, Ohio, to take the thing away. He also said they claimed they were going to take it to one place, but the planes went another. Either they were supposed to have gone to Texas, but went to Wright Field, or vice versa. I have not been paid or given or promised anything of value to make this statement, which is the truth to the best of my recollection. Lydia A. Sleppy. September 14, 1993.
The reports of intense UFO activity in New Mexico and Arizona during that period aligned with the heightened military and technological activities in the region. With Los Alamos serving as a hub for nuclear research and the White Sands Missile Range conducting experiments with captured German V-2 rockets, the area was rife with scientific and military significance. These circumstances offered a plausible explanation for the surge in UFO sightings during the summer of 1947. The detailed reports of UFO sightings, both during the day and at night, underscored the intensity of the phenomenon. Observers provided accurate descriptions of the objects they witnessed, a challenging feat, especially in the case of nighttime sightings. From Silver City to White Sands, individuals reported sightings of disc-shaped objects, spherical orbs, and unusual aerial maneuvers, adding layers of intrigue to the Roswell incident and the broader UFO phenomenon. On July 8, a day after Lydia Sleppy's unusual encounter with the TWX telex machine, Lieutenant Walter Oates, the press officer at the Roswell Military Air Base, took an enthusiastic initiative to release the following press information, relying on gradually emerging information within the military base, without prior approval from his commander, Colonel William Blanchard, a mistake that would later be reproached. Roswell Army Airfield, New Mexico, July 8, 1947, morning. The numerous rumors about flying saucers became yesterday's reality when, with the help of a local farmer, the sheriff of Chavez County and his office, and the intelligence office of the 509th Bombardment Group belonging to the 8th Air Force District, the Roswell Military Air Base managed to obtain such a flying disc. The flying object had landed on a farm near Roswell last week. In the absence of a telephone and any other immediate means of communication with the sheriff's office, the farmer temporarily stored the disc on his property until the sheriff was notified, who in turn informed Major Jesse A. Marcel of the 509th Bombardment Group's intelligence office. Immediate measures were taken to transport the disc from the farmer's house. It was then subjected to initial examination at the Roswell Military Air Base and subsequently handed over to higher authorities by Major Marcel. This press release, picked up by the Associated Press and the New York Times Press Service, appeared in numerous newspapers across the United States, as well as in a series of foreign newspapers, including the London edition of the Times. On the day of its publication in San Francisco, a radio broadcast of an Associated Press statement dated July 7, 1947, was transmitted with the following headline: "Flying saucer sightings now reported in most states." It referred to the spectacular increase in UFO sightings in the U.S. over the past 2 weeks, serving as a kind of prelude to the incident that would gain worldwide significance the next day. In the July 8, 1947 edition of the Daily Record newspaper published in Roswell, an article titled "RAF Captures Flying Saucer on Ranch in Roswell Region" was published, with the subtitle, "No Details of Flying Disc Are Revealed." On one hand, the article seemed to suggest a resolution to the flying saucer controversy, while on the other hand, it hinted that the military had already begun to cover up the entire affair. Below are the passages from the article. The Intelligence Office of 509th Bombardment Group at Roswell Army Air Field announced at noon today that the field has come into possession of a flying saucer. According to information released by the department, over authority of Major J. A. Marcel, intelligence officer, the disc was recovered on a ranch in the Roswell vicinity, after an unidentified rancher had notified Sheriff Geo Wilcox, here, that he had found the instrument on his premises. Major Marcel and a detail from his department went to the ranch and recovered the disc, it was stated. After the intelligence office here had inspected the instrument, it was flown to higher headquarters. The intelligence office stated that no details of the saucer's construction or its appearance had been revealed. Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot apparently were the only persons in Roswell who have seen what they thought was a flying disc. They were sitting on their porch at 105 South Penn last Wednesday night at about 10 minutes before 10 o'clock when a large glowing object zoomed out of the sky from the southeast, going in a northwesterly direction at a high rate of speed. Wilmot called Mrs. Wilmot's attention to it and both ran down into the yard to watch. It was in sight less than a minute, perhaps 40 or 50 seconds, Wilmot estimated. Wilmot said that it appeared to him to be about 1,500 feet high and going fast. He estimated between 400 and 500 miles per hour. In appearance it looked oval in shape, like two inverted saucers, faced mouth to mouth, or like two old-type washbowls placed together in the same fashion. The entire body glowed as though light were showing through from inside, though not like it would be if a light were merely underneath. From where he stood, Wilmot said that the object looked to be about 5 feet in size, and making allowance for the distance it was from town, he figured that it must have been 15 or 20 feet in diameter, though this was just a guess. Wilmot said that he heard no sound, but Mrs. Wilmot said she heard a swishing sound for a very short time. The object came into view from the southeast and disappeared over the treetops in the general vicinity of 6 Mile Hill. Wilmot, who is one of the most respected and reliable citizens in town, kept the story to himself, hoping that someone else would come out and tell about having seen one, but finally today decided that he would go ahead and tell about seeing it. The announcement that the RAAF was in possession of one came only a few minutes after he had decided to release the details of what he had seen. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Roger M. Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force District in Fort Worth, was informed by Lieutenant General Hoyt Vandenberg, the Air Force Chief Representative, via telephone, that parts of the object were located at the Roswell Army Air Field, now called Walker Air Force Base. General Ramey immediately called Colonel Blanchard and expressed his deep disapproval, along with that of General Vandenberg, regarding Blanchard's initiated press release. He then ordered the immediate loading of the wreckage parts from Roswell onto a B-29 aircraft. Despite the immediate presence of two generals behind him, Colonel Blanchard did not want to waste time and instructed Major Marcel to personally pilot the aircraft with the materials to the main headquarters of the general at Carswell Army Airfield in Fort Worth, Texas, where it was briefly inspected before being transported further to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. There, it was to undergo further analysis, as ordered by General Vandenberg himself. In a hastily arranged radio broadcast on multiple stations, using an emitter from Fort Worth, Ramey's very nervous tone assured the public that the flying saucer crash was actually just the remains of a downed weather balloon, and that the entire commotion had arisen from a misidentification. The Daily Record newspaper in Roswell printed on July 9, 1947, on 8 columns, the following headline: General Ramey empties Roswell saucer, with the subtitle, General Ramey says disk is weather balloon. In the same edition of the Daily Record, there is the story of a farmer, William Brazel, who reported to the sheriff that strange debris had fallen on his land after an explosion in the air. This article was titled, Harassed Rancher Who Located Saucer Sorry He Told About It. Although throughout the entire interview William Mac Brazel had tried his best to tell the journalists exactly what the Air Force instructed him to say, namely how he discovered the wreckage and what it looked like, in the end, he showed some independence and asserted that, regardless of what he had said earlier, the wreckage was by no means a weather balloon. He stated that due to his previous experiences, he was quite familiar with weather balloons and that he had absolute certainty that what he found there was not an ordinary weather balloon. He said, "If I ever find anything again, they will find it very difficult to convince me to say anything other than that it is a bomb." Although the Daily Record did its homework, publishing the balloon story on the front page provided by General Ramey, the editorial attitude was clear, namely that it did not unconditionally swallow this story. From what Brazel confessed in the interview, journalists were able to deduce that he had been carefully coached by the Air Force. Lastly, it's worth noting that William Mac Brazel, the rancher who discovered the debris in Roswell, passed away on September 24, 1963. What's intriguing is that on his gravestone, there are symbols associated with Freemasonry. The Masonic square and compasses adorned with the letter G and the sigil of Baphomet. Moreover, it's worth noting that the forget-me-not flower holds special significance within Masonic symbolism. In Freemasonry, this delicate bloom represents remembrance, fidelity, and eternal love, a poignant emblem often associated with the fraternity's teachings. Additionally, the sigil of Baphomet, prominently featured on Brazel's gravestone, is the official insignia of the Church of Satan. Its presence alongside Masonic symbols raises intriguing questions about potential connections between occultism, secret societies, and the events surrounding the Roswell incident. Considering these symbols, alongside Brazel's affiliation with the Masonic Order of Tularosa as mentioned in his obituary, adds layers of complexity to the narrative. Could there be deeper ties between the Roswell UFO incident and clandestine organizations? It's a thought-provoking avenue for exploration. We invite you to share your insights and perspectives on this intriguing connection. Your thoughtful contributions are invaluable as we delve deeper into this enigma. Feel free to comment and share your knowledge, fostering a robust discussion. Let's explore together and uncover the truth behind these symbols and their potential connection to the Roswell UFO incident. Your engagement is essential in unraveling this mystery,